Hello, everybody. Today, we're obviously going to do things a little bit differently, and we're going to start a new unit considering we just finished the quiz or the test over Paleolithic and Neolithic. So we're going to do this a little bit differently, but you're going to need your notebooks in any case because there's going to be a map portion that we need to take a look at with some questions. There's going to be some definitions that I'm going to walk you through. And then you all are also going to do this last part here that talks about the importance of those definitions, which is going to be a little bit of a thinking process. Okay, so let's start off here in our notebooks, and we're going to add this title first of all, so we can kind of get an area that we're talking about and a date range. Okay, so the area that we're talking about is Mesopotamia, which some people have probably heard of Mesopotamia or the Mesopotamians, but they don't know a lot about it. Okay, so Mesopotamia is kind of a general region that is kind of, as you're going to find out here in a second, between three continents. The date that Mesopotamia was most powerful or was kind of the center of the known world at that point was from about 3000 BC to 500 BC. So if you remember, the Neolithic age ends about 4000 BC. So now you're counting backwards even further and you're going to the year 3000 BC all the way up to 500 BC. So still not even to the year zero, but we're getting closer. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm going to go back and forth here to show you all a couple of things of what's going on. But one of the things we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to try to build a very simple map of this area of the world because it's useful knowing where some of these things are taking place. Okay, so as you notice also, I have map questions 1 and 3. I crossed out number 2 because it's not really essential. We don't really need it right now. But the two big questions we're going to try to answer are which two rivers flow through the Mesopotamia and which two continents border Mesopotamia. We just want to know which two continents border Mesopotamia. And in fact, it really could be 3. Okay. So what I'm going to do real quick with this map I'm about to show you is we're going to try to recreate this thing. Now, if you have kind of like a multicolored pen, if you have different colored color pencils, something like that, that would be useful for this, but it's not essential. But I will say again that it's going to be interesting to kind of circle and put a dot and put these lines once we walk through what they are here. Okay, so let's start off. Imagine none of this stuff is here, and imagine that you're just going to use kind of a smaller section of your page. Okay, this doesn't have to take up like a half a sheet of paper. But what you want to start with first is just try to do the rough outline of the black areas, the continents. Okay. So like doing a Africa continent kind of down here in the corner, just kind of quickly like I did here, nothing special. Europe and Asia, same deal. Europe, I just kind of tucked in right here and just made it kind of funky and just put an E on it. And then last but not least, I almost put just kind of a big box over here to represent Asia. Okay, I made it look a little similar to Asia, but relatively speaking, it's just kind of a big section. Okay, so to go back to this question again, it says which two continents border Mesopotamia? Again, it actually technically could be 3. Okay, because most people think that when you get to Mesopotamia, you have just Africa, Asia, but it actually is part of Europe. Okay, so let's back up here. And what are we going to add next? Well, after adding your continents, let's go ahead and add this, what I put a red circle on, which actually represents Mesopotamia. Okay, so if you have a red, Mesopotamia could take up a little bit of Europe, top corner of Africa, and the bottom corner of Asia. Okay, that would be the lands to which they were pretty much located. These days, we would call it the Middle East, or even more specifically, Saudi Arabia, which is like right around here. Okay. But Mesopotamia was just kind of a general vicinity here, general area. And this Mesopotamia circle just kind of encapsulates that. Okay. The next thing I want to put are the two rivers, because as you notice, there's another question that says, which two rivers flow through Mesopotamia? Okay, so we're going to get that one right here. So what you all want to do with the blue, if you have a blue, is almost make like a V shape. So you have the one river over here going down, and then you have the other river going over on this side. So if you want to add those to your map section, that'd be pretty useful. Okay. And these rivers, I mean, in reality, they really flow all the way from Europe down to Africa and all this. They don't, but I made them a little bigger just so they stand out and they have a bigger representation. But these two rivers are important for Mesopotamia because they're kind of the lifeblood for why this area grows to be so big. Okay. And as far as what the names of them are, which you can definitely write over here on the side or just write on your paper, the one right here is the Tigris River. Okay, it almost sounds like tiger, and it's almost spelled like it's Tigris. So the Tigris River is the one on the right hand side, and then the other river on the left hand side is known as the Euphrates, and it starts with EU, just like in Europe. EUPHRATES. So it's like Euphrates with a PH. Okay, so you have the Euphrates and you have the Tigris rivers. Now, the last part here that I put is a dot, and that represents the city or city state. It's actually similar to a state now of Sumer. Okay, I know it looks like summer, but you're going to hear throughout this kind of shorter unit different group names. So, like the Babylonians, the Mesopotamians, and then there's also a place known as Sumer or the Sumerians. I wanted to put Sumer in here just to kind of give you a sense of where it was located. And as you can tell, it's between the rivers and kind of the center of the center. So Sumeria was like a good place pretty much to be as far as this timepiece. Okay, so Mesopotamia again is kind of the outer area, the outer region. Sumer is more specifically a city or a state within that region. Okay, so as far as this whole map and all of its labels, you should have it somewhere. Again, maybe the top part of your notebook page or top corner or something like that. But now you have a frame of reference for where we're talking about when we get into this unit. Okay, so back to this slide. If you notice now, we have the two rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris. We know the continents, technically it's even three, okay, because it's Africa, Europe, and Asia more specifically. But now we want to get into this chart here. Okay. Now, because we're doing things a little different today, I'm obviously not there to give you guys all these notebook pages, nor would I want to, because it's actually quite a few. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through and literally tell you what these are in the black section. And then your last part here that you're going to have to do on your own is to determine the importance, which is this gray section. Okay, so let's start out with what we're going to do here. Okay, first of all, we need to build a chart very similar to this. So as many definitions as you're going to have here, you need that many lines, obviously, in the notebook. Okay, but I would say that if this is your notebook page right here, that you leave half the page for the definition and half the page for the importance. So you can just put a line right down the middle once you do this. Okay, and to just go through what they are, obviously you can tell there's silt, irrigation, surplus. This is city state. It's a hyphenated term. Polytheism, ziggurat, cuneiform, scribe, and down here is epic. Okay, at the bottom. So to get through these, like I said, what we're going to do is hopefully at this point you're maybe writing these down, or you can write down the definition part as I go, just the word, the term. But I'm going to give you the actual definition. I'll repeat it a couple of times. But what you can also tell is I put three colors over on the side because I've chunked up these definitions into similar categories. So everything on this red category has to do with agriculture or farming. The yellow category has to do with government or things going on within a city or even with religion. So they're kind of more people stuff, cultural stuff. And last is everything to do with writing of the time or literature. So it has something to do with their form of writing and different things that they wrote, different pieces. And those are all going to come into play because you guys are going to be doing stuff that kind of goes with a lot of these. Okay. So let's start with these definitions. Again, I'm going to walk you all through them. And as I say them a couple of times, make sure you're listening so we can write it down. And then the end part, which is the importance, is going to be left up to you all. Okay, you're going to have to think of why that would be important for a growing city or a growing region. Because again, we're still talking about 3000 BC to 500 BC. So it's still not necessarily modern, but it's getting pretty close. Okay, so again, the first three here have to do with farming. So obviously they're going to have something to do with it. So the very first one is silt. Okay, silt are fine particles of fertile soil. Again, fine particles of fertile soil. So with silt, it has something to do with the ground. Okay, it has something to do with when you're planting crops. It has something to do with that good soil. And obviously, there's no doubt that there'd be a lot of silt found in the areas around these rivers that we mentioned. So this area is kind of known for having good silt or good soil particles. Okay. Second one here is irrigation. Irrigation is a system to supply water for crops. A system to supply water for crops. And again, this would make sense because we've not talked about it a whole lot, but within these regions, there is actually a lot of desert, depending on where you're at. So when you get into this Mesopotamian area, it would make sense that they're going to build some kind of system, which is an irrigation system, to deliver the water from the river to the crop. So again, this is going to play right into your importance. All right, let's keep going. Surplus has to do with your amount of crops. Okay. So surplus goes kind of with that same mindset. And surplus just stands for an amount that is left over after the need has been met. I'll say that one again because it's a bit of a longer one. An amount that is left over after the need has been met. This clearly deals with food. So this is talking about building up your surplus of food. So once the need has been met, so once you have your kind of minimum need for everybody, you're going to need extra. Okay, so that's what surplus goes with. Okay, city-state, polytheism, and ziggurat, these three in the middle, obviously have something to do with kind of civilization or civilian life living in these cities. So we'll get into this. But the term city-state already kind of gives it away because they're about the size of a city. Today, we would consider it a city, but they operated as we would see a state. So you know that states today kind of have their own state government and their own governor, their own laws, especially, but city states were not as big as what we would call a state today. But either way, as far as the definition, a city state is a city that governs itself and the surrounding territory. A city that governs itself and the surrounding territory. All right. Polytheism is a pretty easy one. It has to do with religion. But polytheism is a belief in more than one God. A belief in more than one God. The word poly, or the kind of prefix here, poly, means more than one, obviously. So like a multi-sided shape is like a polygon. And anytime you see theism, it has something to do with God or religion. So polytheism together obviously tells you that it's a belief in multiple gods, which there are clearly a lot of religions, especially back during the Mesopotamians and when we eventually talk about, the Greeks and Romans and all that, that they have multiple gods to represent multiple different things. Okay. The ziggurat is kind of a crazy word, and it has to do with an actual building. Okay. And you would consider it almost like a palace, but it's got kind of a stepped pyramid shape to it. And the ziggurat is a pyramid shaped structure with a temple at the top. A pyramid shaped structure with a temple at the top. Okay, so again, you can think of it almost like a pyramid, but instead of having sides that are straight down, it's very kind of step pyramid looking, and it has like a little building at the top that served as a temple. So clearly that has something to do with the religion. And last but not least, let's walk through these guys real fast with the writing. Mesopotamian or Sumerian writing is going to be pretty extensive. We talked about in Neolithic that they finally started using, some form of written language of some sort. Mesopotamians are definitely going to perfect it, right? They're going to come up with some writing and some mathematics that are going to be used for both those purposes. So let's get these guys figured out. Okay. Cuneiform, right here. A system of writing that used wedge-shaped marks. A system of writing that used wedge-shaped marks. And to be honest, you all are going to do some cuneiform here over the next couple of days. When they say wedge-shaped marks, they look like golf tees. So anybody that golfs, a lot of their cuneiform writing looks like a bunch of different golf tees kind of laid on top of each other. But you're going to see that here in the next couple of days. All right, scribe, the second last one. A scribe is a person who copies or writes out documents. So they're kind of like a record keeper. A person who copies or writes out documents. All right, and that's going to be important, obviously, because Mesopotamians are going to start actually keeping records of things, right? They're going to record stories so that other people can read them. They're going to record historical events so that other people can learn about them. So we're clearly getting into some advanced civilizations. No more is it just, Paleolithic like hunting, gathering, or Neolithic, they're just learning how to farm. We're getting into some pretty specific stuff. Okay, last one, epic. An epic is a long poem that tells the story of a hero. A long poem that tells the story of a hero. Okay, now that we have all this, okay, to kind of backtrack it, you should have a title. We've answered these two questions using this map that we've kind of created together here. And then obviously the definition part of this chart we've now just walked through. What I want you all to do for this last part here is to think of an importance that would go with each one of these. Okay, so imagine you're living in Mesopotamia and we're obviously kind of just getting these city states started. Okay, let's say we're early, right? Let's say we're in the 3000 BC range. So living near a place that had good silt, or inventing irrigation, or having a surplus of food, and so on and so forth down this list. I don't want you to give me the definition in another kind of way, right? That's not what this is. This is not like redefining the definition. I literally want you to think of why this thing would be important. Okay, going all the way down. So for the writing things, obviously you would want to know what the importance is for the people who are going to read it, or the type of writing they were going to use. Things like polytheism is kind of difficult, okay, but an importance of polytheism obviously has something to do with religion. But even these ones at the very top, I want to know an importance or why that would be important. Okay, so for an example, we can do the first one here together. But the word silt, again, had something to do with the soil, and the soil being kind of rich in mineral and different particles. So obviously, an importance for silt is it is better for growing crops, right? The land is better for growing crops or for farming. So that right there is a straightforward definition. And that's kind of the same thing I want you all to try to attempt over on this side of the chart. Okay. So for me, for right now, that's it. Obviously, I'm going to be getting in contact with you all over the next couple of days, and we're going to keep talking about this unit. But for now, again, hopefully you have the title. Hopefully you have your map, which of course we've answered these questions. You've got your definitions, and now you all are going to work on trying to figure out the importance. All right. Everybody stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.